Hello, my name is Jada Walls, and I'm the appellate judge for State v. Mitch Ritchie. The defense files an appeal to reverse the decision made by the original court and to acquit and release Mitch Ritchie immediately based on ineffective counsel not excluding Nurse Bo Derek Morgan's testimony and for not filing a motion of limine to limit the use of statements regarding the two other fires. The prosecution files that the testimony of Nurse Bo Derek Morgan should not have been excluded because those actions were in good faith. They are also saying the inclusion of the two other fires should not be up to the judge to decide and that the jury should decide how much weight to give that information. The defense filed a motion of limine for the testimony of Nurse Bo Derek Morgan because they believe her testimony violated Federal Rule of Evidence 501 and the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. Indiana recognizes physician-patient privilege under its Code of 34-1-14-5. This privilege aims to protect a person's medical information as well as allow open communication between the two parties. Ms. Morgan willfully broke the privilege by discussing the contents of Mitch Ritchie's visit to Detective Walt Jeremy. This privilege can only be waived by two options. The first is the patient has the right to waive it, or the judge can ask for the release of an individual's medical information, which includes treatment. To my understanding, neither of those two things occurred, which makes the testimony of Bo Derek Morgan a violation of FRE 501. The prosecution is arguing that Detective Walt Jeremy acted in good faith when using that information, but due to his testimony, he knew Mitch Ritchie was admitted into her work, and due to those exact words, he should have known she was a healthcare professional. Even though Detective Walt Jeremy used his testimony to obtain the search warrant, the contents found from the warrant will not be excluded due to the inevitable rule. The information found from the warrant would have been found eventually because they had enough evidence to get a warrant without her testimony. Therefore, her testimony should have been excluded from the trial because of the violation of FRE 501 that occurred, and I will grant the reversal of the decision made by the original court. This case will go back to the original court for a new trial that will exclude the testimony of Nurse Bo Derek Morgan. The defense also mentioned that Nurse Bo Derek Morgan violated the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act of 1996. Even though this is known to be true by her releasing the patient's identity along with his history of treatment, her willingly violating HIPAA is a question for another jury. Mitch Ritchie was already a suspect to Detective Walt Jeremy before hearing Ms. Morgan's statements, and the evidence would have pointed to him regardless of her testimony. The defense also filed a motion of limine about the inclusion of evidence about the two other fires and how they were more prejudicial than probative for the jury, violating FRE 404(b)(1). Prior to the trial, the original judge granted a motion to bifurcate the trial due to Mitch Ritchie denying being at the other sites and a lack of evidence that links all three fires. During the trial, the prosecution mentions the other two files while discussing the first one multiple times, even though he has yet to be convicted of those acts. Under FRE 404(b)(1), evidence of other acts to prove a person's character in order to show they were acting in accordance is not admissible. The prosecution was trying to show the jury that he committed the other fires after the first because he is capable of those acts and had information to hide. The information about the other two fires did not need to be mentioned due to other evidence that supported his presence at the first fire. The two trials were bifurcated for a reason, and the evidence mentioned was prejudicial to the jury because they made it seem like he was guilty of multiple fires before he was even convicted. It's hard for a jury to forget that the other two fires when making a decision, so this did not allow Ritchie to have a fair trial. The prosecution is saying that this issue should be decided by the jury instead of the judge on how much weight to give the evidence. But the evidence of the two fires does not show any probative value to the case. The evidence was more prejudicial and violated the defendant's constitutional rights. I will grant the reversal of the decision made by the original court. This case will go back to the original court for a new trial that will exclude the use of statements pertaining to the other two fires. The ruling of the court is that the testimony of Bo Derek Morgan should have been excluded from the original trial, so I grant the reversal of the conviction, but do not grant the defendant to be acquitted or released. This case will return to the original court for a new trial that will exclude the use of Nurse Broderick Morgan's testimony. The ruling of the court is that the use of testimonies pertaining to the other two fires should have been excluded from the original trial as well, due to it being prejudicial and not allowing for a fair trial. I grant the reversal of the conviction, but do not grant the defendant to be acquitted or released. The case will return to the original court for a new trial that will exclude the use of statements pertaining to the other two fires.